If you're looking to relocate to the Czech Republic via the family reunification visa route, then this channel might be for you. Hello, my name is Evelyn and welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to be talking about the interview questions that I was asked during my family reunification visa interview that took place in Abuja, Nigeria. So I have my PC here and I have the questions listed here. So if you haven't seen my previous video, you might just want to watch it so as to have an idea as to what I'm talking about. That is, if you're someone who just recently applied for a family reunification visa at the Czech Embassy in Abuja. So for context, I went to the Czech Embassy 3 times and I had 2 interviews. So the first time I went to the Czech Embassy, like I said in my previous video, I didn't have some of my documents. The second time that I did go, I was called for an interview and asked a couple of questions. And then the third time that I did go to the Czech Embassy, I was specifically called for an interview and I was asked so many questions. Now, just so you know, these questions might be different for different people, but personally, these were the questions that they asked me when I applied for my own family reunification visa, which was like less than 4 months ago. So I know for a fact that the questions might differ, yeah, but I just know that you might be asked similar questions. So to tell you, yeah, during my first interview, I didn't do well at all. I fumbled so many questions because I did not know the questions to expect. So I honestly did not even like study or anything like that. I just decided to just flex it. But I did a couple of research and some people were giving tips on YouTube as to the questions that they would ask you. Basically, I just saw only one video on YouTube and it was a guy who helps people to relocate to the Czech Republic. He basically has like an immigration YouTube channel and he offers immigration services and relocation services for people who are coming from other countries to the Czech Republic. And when I went on his channel, he was talking about the interview question that they would ask you if you're coming for family relocation visa to the Czech Republic. And they didn't ask me any of the questions that he spoke about in his channel, but I went to the Czech Embassy a day before my interview and I spoke to someone. That's a day before my first interview, and I spoke to someone who works there and he was like, okay, these are some of the questions that they would ask you. He just told me about 3 questions and I was so calm, collected. But when I tell you that when I went for this interview, the questions that this lady was asking me, the Czech staff rather was asking me, I honestly did not expect it. And it's not as if the questions were hard, yeah. It's just that they were asking for specific details. Like, one of the questions that I was asked during my first interview was, when you and your husband were dating up until you applied for this family reunification visa, how many times has he come to Nigeria to visit you? Now, they were expecting me to give precise dates. And my husband at this particular time had been to Nigeria about 3 times. So I could tell you, okay, he came to Nigeria in August, he came in December, he came in January, but I could not give specific dates. And they were asking for specific dates. And I know the reason why they are doing this is because for the answers you give, they might need to cross-check it, because even the Czech staffs at the Czech Embassy in Abuja, these interview questions are sent down to them from the Ministry of Interior here in Czech Republic. So if you're telling someone, my husband came to Nigeria in January and he came the first week of January, he left the last week of January, you're complicating their work because they will find it very hard to impute these things into their system. So you're just like irritating them. Even when I was doing my first interview, I could tell that the Czech staff who was interviewing me was displeased with my answer. Like, she was really, really dissatisfied with the answers that I was giving her. And during the first interview, they asked me a couple of questions that I did not know the answer to. But thank God that I was called for a second interview, because in that second interview, when I tell you I killed, oh God, I'm just joking, but yeah, I did very well during my second interview. I answered all the questions and even I was impressed with myself. And even the interviewer was just nodding his head and he was like, yeah, smiling, because I was making his work easier for him. I was just giving it to him. As he was asking me the question, I was giving it to him back to back. So I'm going to be reading out these questions and I'm going to be explaining them to you because I wrote them in my words. It's not as if they gave me a paper. They just called me for the interview and then I sat down like directly opposite the Czech staff. There was just like a glass demarcating I and this Czech staff, and they were just asking me questions. So after the interview, I went home and I did think about these whole questions and I noted them down. So these are just questions that I got from my head. Not that they gave me a paper and I just like listed them here. These are questions that I remembered during my first and second interview and I typed out so that I could communicate to people who might end up finding this useful. So I'm going to be reading out the questions and I'm not going to be telling you how I answer the question because I believe that different people would definitely have different answers. But if you want to know how I did answer some of these questions during my own interview, please let me know in the comments down below and I would happily explain to you or tell you the answer that I did give the Czech staff during my own interview. But the reason why I'm not going to be telling you about my answers is because I do not want this video to be very long. And to tell you how long my interview was, when I came out, there were a couple of Nigerians who were also there that had come for interview as well. There was one guy who was there for school. I think there was another footballer. There were a couple of different people. I met like 2 or 3 different persons who were there and who were also waiting for an interview. And by the time I came out from the room, they were surprised. They were like, how many questions were they asking? Like, you stayed so long. I have to tell you how they were bombarding me with questions. That's to give you an insight as to how my interview went. So without further ado, let's head right into the interview questions. So I'm going to be listing these questions in no particular order. I just combined the whole questions together. Well, I might tell you some of the questions that I was asked during my first interview and some of the questions that I was asked during the second interview. So I really cannot remember all the questions that I was asked specifically during the first interview. So I just listed them down in no particular order. And I don't think these are all the questions. These are basically just the questions that I can remember. If at any point in time I do remember any questions, I will list them in the description down below this video. So number 1, why are you going to the Czech Republic? So the question is explanatory, no need for any additional explanation. You just tell them why you're going to the Czech Republic. But please, when you're giving your answers, make sure you're very confident. Make sure you avoid things like make sure you're detailed and precise. Because during my first interview, I was a bit nervous. I couldn't give like explicit answers. I did a lot of you can see the lady just looking at me like. Most times, when they call you for this interview, it's simply because they want to know if your reason for going to the Czech Republic is genuine. So when you're saying you're indirectly telling them that you are not sure of your answer, and it might just like raise red flags, and they most likely would be like, okay, fine, I don't see a reason to give this person a visa. So you do not want to be denied a visa. So please listen attentively. Do as I say, okay? So number 2 question that I can remember is, what does your husband do? That is your husband's work, his job basically. So the 3rd question is, describe your husband's job. So if they ask you, what does your husband do? If you're like, my husband's a cybersecurity professional, I said that. And they're like, describe the job. So they want to know, because if you're in love with somebody, obviously you should have an idea of like their day-to-day activities at the office. So the 4th question that I have here is, how long has your husband been in the Czech Republic? So remember, when you're answering these questions, if your husband has been in the Czech Republic from the 1st of January 2024 up until the 31st of December 2024, please give them that precise answer. Avoid saying he has been from like, let's say, beginning of the year 2023 to the end of. They would want to cross-check these things. Do not forget, they can actually cross-check it. Here they have a system that works and everything is basically documented. So if you give them precise answer, they can easily confirm, which will make the process of them issuing you a visa much more easier. So the 5th question that I have here is, how much is your husband's salary? You have to know your husband's salary. If your husband is the type that doesn't want you to know his salary, he has no choice but to let you know. You have to know how much he earns. So number 6, and for this salary, they're asking for monthly salary, not like the yearly salary. You can just tell them to so per month, if it's weekly, if it's bi-weekly, whichever it is. So the 6th question is, what type of apartment does your husband live in? Like during my own time, my husband made me understand that here they don't say 1 bedroom, they don't say 2 bedroom, they say 2kk, 3kk. So ask your husband. If your husband has been living here for a while, he should know. And I was told, I don't know how true that is, but I was meant to understand that before you can even apply for a family reunification visa, your husband has to be living here for over a year. So obviously, if your husband has been here for over a year, he should be able to give you some of the answers to these questions. So number 7 is, where is the house located? Please, when you're going for this interview, make sure you know the detailed address. Because during my first interview, the lady was like, what's your husband's address? And it's not as if I didn't know. I knew where he was living. I knew at that particular time he was living in Prague 1. So you know in Czech, yeah, they do not speak English. Their official language is Czech. So obviously, most of these, their street name, their addresses will be in Czech language. And they're very hard to pronounce. Like currently we live in Upagamenki. Like that's something that I might most likely not remember at a spot. And remember, it's not like I studied this question. So if you have an idea of the questions to expect, you can study them. So during my second interview, I spent like 2 days studying some of these questions. You would think that I was writing one serious exam like that. But at the end of the day, when you get your visa, it's worth it. Because look, let's not lie. This process can be very tough. And like there is no greater feeling as you having to like get your visa to join your spouse who has been here for a while. So please know the address, the detailed address, like the house number, the street number, the detailed address. Because like I said, they most likely will cross-check this answer. If you go there and go and yarn dust, basically go there and say rubbish, you're on your own. You know what might happen. So the next question is, where is your husband's company located? That's in Czech Republic. He would obviously have an office, so they're asking for the address of that office. You do not, for this, you don't necessarily have to know like the precise address, but if you can just like give them like a broader answer, like you can say, okay, my husband's office is located in Prague 7, Prague 1, because that's how it is. They have Prague 1, Prague 2, Prague 3, like that. So if you can just give them, they would like, okay, know that, okay, fine, this person has an idea of what they're talking about. And when you go to cross-check, they'll know that, okay, fine, your answer tallies. And then the next question is, that's number 9. How many times has your husband visited Nigeria since he traveled to Czech? Now for this, you'll be expected to give the full dates of entry and exit. I said that previously. And also, if you're someone who is doing long distance and your husband has not been coming to Nigeria to visit you, it might decrease your chances of you getting a family unification visa. So if you are married and your husband has plans, or even if you're dating, or probably in the future you guys have plans to get married so you can get a visa to join your husband who works and lives in the Czech Republic, you might want to start having to like either you apply for a short stay visa, even if they deny you, at least attempt to apply. I'm telling you, this was my story. I did make an attempt to apply for a short stay visa because during my interview, they asked me, they were like, why haven't you gone to visit your husband on a short stay before? They were trying to say that, okay, you are so much in love. How comes you haven't gone to visit him or even try to go visit him on a short stay before? They will ask you. So please, if you can apply, or you guys can probably save up and you can go see him. And also if you can make an effort to come visit you in Nigeria, because it's not normal that you guys are dating and then for a year you don't see each other and you're okay with that, when it's not as if he's in the country illegally. If he has his visa, if he can travel to Nigeria and come back without no issues, then he should be able to travel to Nigeria to see, even if it is once or twice, because that would help you in your visa application process. So the next question is, have you traveled outside Nigeria before? This is important too, because the more you travel, the more it increases your chance for them issuing you this visa. And the reason is simple, because most Nigerians, when they travel abroad to like the US, the UK, most of them will go there for tourist visa and they would not even want to come back because they're looking for greener pastures. And because the Czech people know this, they try as much as possible to scrutinize you before issuing you the visa. So if you travel to a developed country before, it would make the chances of them issuing you a visa easier. During my first interview, I had not traveled to anywhere. The lady asked me, and like she was like, well, okay, like you can see that face where like she's like, you've not traveled before. But during my second interview, when I was telling the guy that I have traveled to Qatar and I came back, because Qatar is a very developed country, it did increase my chance of me getting this visa. So the next question is, what countries have you traveled to and how long were you gone for and when did you return? Make sure you give specific dates, because they most likely will cross-check. If you're saying that you traveled in so and so, obviously they'll go through your visa and they would see, because if you're living in Nigeria, they most likely will stamp your passport. So the next question here is, how long do you plan to stay in the Czech Republic? This is a tricky question. Very tricky. So when you're answering it, make sure you use your sense. Now let me tell you, The Czech people do not want immigrants or like tourists or basically people who are coming for short stay or long stay to come here and stay forever. They want people who would come when they give them a visa, and when their visa expire, they would return back to their country. Now, when they're giving you a long stay visa, which is a family reunification visa, the visa is not going to be forever. It's obviously going to be like for 6 months or a year. My own visa was for 6 months. So if they ask you that, do you have plans of returning back to Nigeria if you go to the Czech Republic? If you like, go and say, no, I don't have any plans. Me and my husband are just going to relocate there. They will deny you. So you should be very smart and say, yeah, I have plans. During my time, what I basically said was, the reason why I'm going to the Czech Republic is so I can visit my husband when it's convenient for me, because since we got married, he has been the one coming to Nigeria. So if I have my visa, it will be easier for me to visit him in the Czech Republic and come back to Nigeria, because I equally have my nuclear family who lives here as well. I am very big on family, and I equally have a job. Even if I'm a freelancer, my job from time to time requires me to be on site. So please structure your answer and know how to give it to them. Do not go and lie you, because this answer that I did give, in a way, I was able to relate it to my work, my family. So when you're giving answers, make sure that it relates. I'm not going to use my line before they will remember and be like, I interviewed somebody and she gave me this kind of this thing. Who knows, maybe you just want to go and collect expo. That's obviously an over-exaggeration, but I am an overthinker. So please be smart with your answers. So the next question is, that's number 13. Do you have plans of returning back to Nigeria if you get a Czech visa? So that's a tricky question. So some of these questions, yeah, they would ask you the same questions using different words. Now you can see they asked me in number 12, how long do you plan to stay in the Czech Republic? And then like when they ask you like 5 questions in between, later on they will now throw a question and say, do you have plans of returning back to Nigeria if you get the visa? And like sometimes you will even say, yeah, I have plans. We're like, why? But your husband will be living there. Like, they just want to catch you in a lie. Do not fall for it. Like during my first interview, the lady was like, so when you go to Czech Republic, what will you be doing? What work will you be doing? Like, she seemed so concerned, as if she wanted to, like, she was giving me this vibe, like, if you give me the answer of you're going to be staying, you're going to be a stay-at-home mom, then it means you're just late. It's like, what are you going to be doing? I was just like, I was just like shaking my head. I didn't even know what answer to give. I just smiled. I looked at her. I don't think I even gave her an answer because I was confused as to what answer to give. I just was looking at her like, she's just like, oh, okay, because she didn't want to like waste so much time on me. I guess she just moved on to the next question. But thank God I didn't give her an answer to say, I'm gonna find a job. I was just looking at her quietly because I didn't know what answer to give. So if you don't know the answer to give, it's better you do not even answer. And thank God they called me for a second interview, because like after my first interview, I went online, did a couple of research. I told my husband to ask some of his friends who had wives that were based in the Czech Republic already, that had gone through the same process as me. And I was able to like get small insights from here and there, and I was able to like implement it during my second interview. And yeah, I'm here in the Czech Republic. So the next question, which is number 15, they would ask, what school certificate do you have? I don't know why they asked this or why they need this question, because honestly, your family reunification visa do not allow you to work when you come to the Czech Republic. You might be able to like get another visa, apply for a new visa after that one expires, and it will like enable you to work. But once you get that family reunification visa, it's not really allow you to work. So be ready. So the next question that they did ask me was, what job do you currently do in Nigeria? For me, I told them that I was a freelance realtor, so I can do my work wherever I am. So it doesn't really require me to be on site all the time. Just like I rarely go to the site. So I basically advertise my business on social media. I get clients, refer them to the company, and I get paid commission. Basically, that's what I was doing, real estate, before I moved to Ibadan and then moved to the Czech Republic. And if they ask for proof, I can easily say, yeah, I have a social media platform. I'm a freelancer. I'm registered with so many companies, and I could like provide proof for that. But they didn't ask me, luckily for me. But low-key, there are some questions that they would ask you, you give them answers, and they'll be like, yeah, we need to see a proof. Because they asked me, they're like, how long have you and your husband been together? And I was like, 3 years. And they were like, where's your proof? to show that people have been in a relationship for over 3 years. This was during my first interview. Okay, I was like, I didn't know I was supposed to bring proof of relationship. I didn't know I was supposed to bring pictures. If I knew, I would have brought them. It was not stated on the website. And they're just like, well, you should have. So please, when you're going, make sure you go with your proof of relationship. Very important. So I did go along with this during my second interview, and they collected it ASAP. So any document that you think that they might need or they might ask for, follow your instinct. Because during my first interview, I think they asked me a couple of questions. I can't remember the specific question that they asked me. When I was going for my second interview, I made sure that I took my certificate that they gave me during my white wedding. And that really did come through for me, because during my court wedding, my parents did not have to be there for the court wedding, but we had an idea that would even raise eyebrows when we go to Czech Embassy for our family reunification visa. So during the second interview, because my parents' signature were not on my court wedding certificate, they asked me for the white wedding certificate, and I showed them. They were like, okay, fine, who were in attendance? Because you can't tell them that you're marrying somebody and your family are not there. They will think the marriage is just in hoods. Because people legit do this when they're traveling to the US or UK. I read about these stories sometimes, and it's just so like crazy. So the Czech people know this. I know that people can just like lie and say they are married and they can provide a certificate, and they can even provide a journey certificate, but in reality the marriage is just a hoods. So yeah, the next question that they did ask me was, have you visited the Czech Republic before to visit your husband on a short stay visa? They asked me, and luckily for me, yeah, in December of 2023 I had applied for a short stay visa to go visit my husband in Czech Republic. And I got an interview. I'd already even booked my flight and everything to go to Abuja. But then these Czech people sent me an email saying that they were having a government visit to their embassy, so they would have to postpone my interview and move it to another date. I know that Nigerian flights are non-refundable, so I explained to them that I'd already booked for a flight. These flights are non-refundable. I would not be able to postpone. And the crazy thing was that I had applied during December so I could go visit my husband in Czech in January. I know that this January is like Christmas period, so the prices of flights are usually very high during this festive season. Eventually, I had to cancel and tell them that I would not be able to go on with the interview because the flights just kept on increasing every day. Thank God we didn't even book. Like every day, like you will check today, the flight has increased by 200k, tomorrow by 400k, next tomorrow by 500k. The price was just ridiculously expensive just for me to go visit my husband and come back. Actually, when I said, I was like, see, I don't think it would be a smart move for us to go ahead with this short stay visa, because number one, we had a wedding coming up and we also had plans for relocation, and all these things cost like a whole lot. If you want to have an idea as to how much I spent during my whole visa process and how much it took for me to come here to the Czech Republic, you might want to check my last video. I did explain everything there. If they ask you, have you gone to visit your husband on a short stay visa, and you say no, they would ask you, why is that? And I guess if you say yes, they most likely would ask you when, so they can cross-check. So the next question is, what are your husband's hobbies? So yeah, and you should be able to say that without saying So I guess the reason why they ask this question is so that they can be able to catch you in a lie, or they can see if it's something that you know and can easily just say there and then. So number 20 is, what is your husband's date of birth? They will ask for the day, the month, the year. So know that as well. Next question is, when was your wedding and what type of weddings did you have? They would equally ask for the dates that these weddings took place. So for number 22, they asked who were in attendance during this wedding, and they will ask for pictures too. So number 23 is, for how long has your husband lived in the Czech Republic? Remember, I said some of these questions, they would repeat it. During my interview, the guy kept on repeating questions, and I was like I said earlier, when I want to ask, I was like I said earlier, and then he was like, oh, I'm so sorry I'm repeating some of these questions, but that's what was sent to me from the Ministry of Interior in Czech Republic. So he did apologize, but they would still ask and impute it. They would ask the question, as you give them the answer, they will be typing it in. So the next question is, for how long has your husband lived in the Czech Republic? Next question is, for how long have you both been married for? And then they would ask, do you have any kids? And next question was, have you been married before? And then the other question they asked was, what type of visa does your husband have? Next question is, for how long do you plan to stay in the Czech Republic? Another question is, how did you and your husband meet? And then number 31 here is, how long have you known your husband for? And then they would ask, were you and your husband living together in Nigeria? They also asked, when did I and my husband start dating? And they also asked, when did you meet your husband? Like before you started dating, they would ask when you met him. So the next question is, do you and your husband have any joint property or investment? And if you say yes, they most likely will ask for proof, but basically that increases your chance of you getting a family reunification visa. So the second to last question I have here that they did ask me was, why is your surname not the same as your husband's surname? Because during my first interview, they asked me this question, and then we had just recently got married. So I basically just told the lady that we just recently got married and have been so busy, and it takes like a lot of administrative steps in changing my surname here in Nigeria. And obviously we really did not want to do that, because we'll have to start changing so many things, and it most likely would affect our whole documentation process and all. It was just like a whole lot. I know that Nigerian things are not just like straightforward. You have to like provide this, change this, do that. Just like for everything to just be easy and straightforward, let us just continue with my surname, because even before we did our white wedding and traditional wedding, I had already started applying, and we even got married in January 2024, and I started this process immediately in February of 2024. So like after sending email for interview, then I will now go back and start changing my name. Then I'll have to now change my passport. I remember when you're going for interview, you have to send them like a copy of your passport, like that. So like the whole process as to changing the whole name was something that we're not just ready to go ahead with at that particular point in time. Honestly, I did not have the energy, and I could not go through that stress, and I didn't want it to affect any of my document or interview process, because a name change is actually a very big deal. So the lady asked, and I was able to answer, and she was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. And then the last question here that they asked me was, what language would you use in communicating in the Czech Republic? Why they asked this, I do not know. For me, I just said English. So these were basically the questions that they did ask me during my interview for family reunification visa at the Czech Embassy in Abuja. So that's basically all for today. If you did find this video helpful, please don't hesitate to like, comment, and share with people who you know might equally find videos like this helpful. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to my channel, and you can equally turn on the notifications if you would find videos like this helpful, because I'll be posting them regularly every week. So thank you for watching. I hope to see you in my next one. Bye.